people all the time responded like, we want happiness and peace. They did not really think about development or like the economic development at that time.
The sacredness of time. And in a country...
I was listening to you deeply. My heart was listening to yours. And I heard your voice crack when you were saying the word kapwa as a web of care that catches our people in the absence.
Again, we have to go back to nature. Be one with it because in the end, nature will tell us what to do. Because kung nakikinig ka sa nature, it will tell you ano yung gusto niya, ano yung dapat nating ilagay. And I think it's also being able to say na we can be less
Kung sakali magdi-design po kayo, magpang-pastor planning po kayo ng nature, ano po yung design ninyo pang ilang years, pang advance? Bawa po architect, yung mga lawa, mga ganon, hindi dapat takpan. Happy morning, muli ang inyong likod, Biz Horizon Chaser. Narito po tayo ngayon dito sa Maybank Performing Art Theater, dito sa BGC, na kung saan ay matutunghayan natin yung pangunguna rito ng DTI. At ito nga po ay may kinalaman sa design para sa hinaharap. Kaya alamin natin kung ano po yung mga ilalatag ngayon ng ating mga panel at paano ito maikakapit natin sa hinaharap at sa pang-araw-araw na ating pamumuhay. Right, so taon-taon po ito ginaganap sa buwan ng September at sa ngayong araw nga ay September 20, 2024 at ito ay talagang na dumating dito yung iba't ibang mga professionals dito sa ating bansa para po ay ibigay itong or suportahan itong tema Design Beyond Desire. So titingnan natin at narito yung ibang mga designers, businesses at mga policymakers at narito rin po yung mga tools and insight needed to address sa mga kung anong real world talaga, kung ano yung kailangan dito sa mundong ito at ano yung mga solution or gagawin para po ay talagang may papakita nila kung ito ay paano i-apply yung parang plano, at may kinalaman dito yung ating mga architect. May mga payo sila rito, kaya titingnan natin kung ano nga ba yung gagawin nila doon sa mga panels na inilatag, lalo na sa may kinalaman din sa nature at papaano nila iyon na mabigyan ng magandang plano sa hinaharap. Nakaakibat pa rin po yung ating kalikasan. Kaya maraming pag-aaral na ginagawa rito. Kaya mas maganda talagang maintindihan natin yung kahalagahan ng mga pag-create ito ng meaningful sa ating mundo. At syempre dapat ang kanilang idea ay sustainable, at ito ay talagang alam natin na hindi dapat baliwalain. Okay, so alamin natin yung mga discussion at talagang alam natin na makakatulong ito sa dagdag kaalaman kung paano yung mga disenyo natin ngayon sa ating mga designers dito sa ating bansa ay talagang pinag-iisipan nila kung paano yung sa hinaharap ay magagamit pa ito. Kaya tara, titingnan po natin at alamin natin ang iba pang mga detalye rito. So, ayan, sa lahat po ng mga creative na mga kababayan natin dito sa ating bansa at sa buong mundo, eto na po yung para sa inyo. Happy morning po, Architect, at salamat po kanina, at napakinggan po namin kayo sa panel. At gusto lang po namin mas lalong maipakita sa ating mga kababayan kung bakit napakahalaga, lalo na sa may kinalaman sa nature na nabanggit niyo po kanina. So, alright, pakisuyo na lang po, Architect, sa iba pang mga gusto natin na i-highlights.
Well, I think the most important thing, good morning, Good morning, happy morning. And I think yung pinaka-importanting gusto kong masabi kanina at nasabi ko naman is yung, again, we have to go back to nature. Be one with it because in the end, nature will tell us what to do. Because kung nakikinig ka sa nature, it will tell you ano yung gusto niya, ano yung dapat nating ilagay. And I think it's also being able to say na we can be less invasive. Kasi kung iniisip natin na tayo is nature, you will not hurt yourself eh. The mindset right away changes the action. So, bilang nature and as Filipinos, we will never destroy the Philippines because we are the Philippines.
So, tama po no architect na dapat tayo ang umayon sa nature dahil tayo ang may kailangan sa kanila, di ba po? So, ano po yung mga halimbawa po natin? Kanina sa panel, anong lugar po uli yun na syempre parang virgin area pa, no? So, papaano kapag nag-develop po doon para po naman mabigyan ng paalala itong ating mga developer. So, konting payo po para doon sa, kung di man yung lugar na yun, sa iba pang mga lugar dito sa Pilipinas.
I think importante yung being mindful, no? Kung iniisip natin tayo mismo ay nature, we have to think yung malasakit. Ano yung malasakit mo para sa kapwa mo at sa tao? And then, of course, yun yung nature, yung pinaka-konti at pinaka-hanggat maaari, pinakamaliit na pwede mong galawin dun sa property or sa lugar. I think those will be naturally an effort ng every Filipino pagka inisip niyang ako ay nature. So, it's almost like loving yourself same as how you love nature, and it's like loving nature like you love yourself.
Alright, so architect, isa pa po. Halimbawa po, hindi naman po kayo against sa mga bagong inobasyon ngayon at bagong pamamaraan ng pagde-develop ngayon. So ano po masasabi natin sa ganun? Kapag po tayo ay meron pong master planning sa isang bago pa lamang po na lugar, ano po, na mga hindi pa nagagalaw.
Kaya I'm advocating modern Filipino, and whenever I say na modern, it means better. So ang tanong muna is better for who? Is it better for the people or better for nature alone? Why can it be better for nature, which means better for both? So, dapat parehas, dapat may balanse, and I think that is the challenge to every architect, planner, developer, every Filipino, every human being.
Ano po masasabi natin, architect, na yung kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga proyekto ay hindi muna kinukonsulta sa architect, ano po ba yung kahalagahan ninyo?
Well, architects we all have our expertise. We respect the architects, designers, engineers, all creatives. We respect all of that. That's part of, I would say, the variety of the world, no? So ang point lang is I think we have to collaborate. Kasi at the end of the day, kung alam natin na may limitasyon tayo, may expertise tayo, but hindi naman tayo expert ng lahat. As architects, we need engineers, we need interior designers, we need furniture designers to put it all together kung ano yung modern Filipino. So ang punto dito is una, kailangan masabi natin na kailangan natin ng tulong at pagtulong-tulungan.
So dapat mauna ang architect. At kayo, doon po kayo expert
The vision starts from the architect. And of course, we start to put together the team and again, let the vision be the guiding principle ng lahat. And kaya malaking bagay yung kailangan ng arkitekto is tama din yung kanyang pinanggagalingan.
Last na po, architect, personal na lang po. Kung sakali magdi-design po kayo, magmamaster planning po kayo ng nature, ano po yung design niyo pang ilang years, pang advance?
Well, alam mo, kaya sinabi ko, there's an architecture that is yung Philippine architecture nung nakaraan. Kasi it's a chain of history. As much as we try to solve the issue of today and hopefully tomorrow, if we can future-proof it, di ba? It's very profound, the future, no? So we can only do it whatever we have now as a technology, as resources. Meron tayong limitasyon, kaya nga may time eh. Now, I leave it up to the next generation also to evolve. So that ang iniiwan ko sa bawat Filipinong arkitekto is yung prinsipyo na be one with nature. Because that will give you that modern Filipino sensibility.
Halimbawa po, architect, yung mga lawa, mga ganon, hindi dapat takpan, ano po? Or,
Well, yun,
hindi
no,
ganon.
yun nga, parang
Nature yan.
kailangan mong isipin na irespeto mo yung nature.
So, bali kayo po ang mag-a-adjust sa nature. Malinaw.
You have to adjust the least possible invasive effort. Dapat wag mong gawin kung hangga't maaari.
Dapat pala lahat ganyan. No? Alright, so thank you so
Thank
much
you.
po. May mensahe po kayo pinapanghuli.
Well, sana lahat tayo magtulong-tulong. Let's all put together what is modern Philippines. A better Philippines is what the country needs. We all deserve luxury by design.
Thank you so much po, architect. Thank you po.
To what extent can we destroy environment is a question that we always have to ask. Because we have to also pass down to the generations, the next generations. We cannot at the cost of developing, making, gross down. We are not here to live forever. But for the time that we are living, we cannot extract everything and leave nothing for the next generation. So this is knowing between more and enough. I think liberating desire, design beyond desire, I think is a strong message that we design our mindset beyond the desire of having more wealth, measure acts of voluntarism, etc. And it's only measured and calculated every year. But for GNH, we do service after every 5 years. Constantly trying to, with the generations.
For the development of thoughtful and meaningful spaces in the metro. Ms. Carmen Ong. The founder of the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines, seeking to promote Philippine creative industries in international markets, Ogilvy Consulting Asia's president, Mr. Pablo Mercado. Managing Director of Concilio Operazioni, Inc., and Principal Architect at Concilio Poco Architects, Architect Leandro Poco. And of course, let's call back on stage Mr. Latu. Moderating this session is the co-founder of ethnographic and design consultancy firm, Curiosity, and currently professorial lecturer at the College of Architecture at the University of the Philippines, Ms. Pamela Cahilig. Welcome everyone, and I'll turn the floor over to Pam.
Hi everyone, good morning. It's great to be moderating this session for the third time in a row. So if there are people here who have been attending since 2021, hello and hello to all of you. Let's start with a few follow-up questions first to Mr. Latu, who really gave an inspiring talk and really outlining the pillars and domains that only grows national happiness. And I also want to thank Mr. Latu and Bhutan personally, because as someone who teaches climate and does research in climate and disaster resilience, it's a topic that often brings about a lot of anxiety and despair, especially now that we're living in climate extremes. And we know here in the Philippines, we've ranked #1 in the world risk index, partly because of our exposure to climate change. And whenever my students or my research participants feel despair, I always bring up Bhutan as an example. The window for action is increasingly closing, but you're showing that, even if there's not much time to act, we can act. And you don't have to be a big economy to be able to act. So thank you for that. And without much further ado, I think a lot of us are quite interested in how we can implement and operationalize GNS. So I suppose my first question is, GNH. When we embrace GNH, when Bhutan embraced GNH as its kind of government philosophy, this of course bucks the trend because the wider community of nations still adopts GDP So my question is, and Bhutan as part of this the international community, does adopting GNH, gross national happiness, present any barriers for Bhutan to connect with the wider community?
Thank you very much. Yes, I think with the modernization, this is a challenge, definitely. But I think since this philosophy has come from the leadership, a very top, His Majesty the fourth king, at the time he was always, he used to meet our people, discussing on the plans, 5-year plans. He would travel the whole country and call the whole the district's population. He will travel district-wise, and he will have this kind of audience, like over 4,000-5,000, people called there. Then he will just talk from here on the plans and projects, and then he will let people talk. Also give their views, whether what he is planning would bring benefits to the country or to their well-being and happiness. What would they want? So every time, in fact, he traveled across the country, he only asked, what do you want? But people all the time responded like, we want happiness and peace. They did not really think about development or like the economic development at that time. Since it has come from the very top, I think it is not really difficult for Bhutan to really pursue this philosophy. And at the same time, I think now this philosophy is gaining a lot of international attention, a lot of popularity. So that means I think this is going to work. And even in Philippines, I think we can, as I said in my talk, it's just about the mindset. I think a very clear mindset that we should have to change the system change. This is a new system probably for Philippines in case you wanted to adopt the gross national happiness philosophy. But not totally you would like to do this because it will not work in your context. You will have a different context. But then how to juggle between those things? So like time use I was talking about. So this will be a very important element about how you promote, the employees' well-being that way, giving enough time, enough breaks. So these are some of the elements. I don't think it is really difficult to, really change the system. So from somewhere, someone has to actually start. Some organizations, maybe some organization, can really show this and then maybe present in this kind of forum and then, okay, we did this follow and how much productivity, how much we have gained and all those things. If you come out with certain kind of a, case studies and done something that you have initiated, then probably this would work in other organizations. Then they'll feel, okay. So I think we can slowly adopt this way.
One thing that I'm really taking away from just this conversation now in your presentation is the importance of leadership in making gross national happiness happen. And you've emphasized how it's bottom-up governance. And there's a lot of confidence when leaders really talk to the people because it's evidence-based and it's evidence that it's what the people want. And you have solid ground to develop policies from there and inform leadership visions from there. Now, gross national happiness requires deep systemic changes and turning away from, the typical desire of just focusing on economic progress. So my next question is, from the time that the government started reforms in this direction, how much time till you saw impact? And in what were the earliest domains that showed impact?
Good question, thank you. I think it was not difficult to really, create this awareness of this philosophy in the country. But it depended upon how we applied the philosophy. Because, as I mentioned, there wasn't some tools at that time when His Majesty pronounced that gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product. So what kind of tools should we apply this philosophy? So this was like the 4 pillars in those 9 domains. And after like 10 years of our, basic developmental activities that have been started, then Bhutan tried to embark on a harmonized approach to development. From there, we kind of saw impacts. And the most important part is following this philosophy. Of course, it did not manifest, it was not a very immediate kind of a result that you would gain. Definitely, it took some time to really, take its momentum. But then, since, happiness was always at the forefront of our leadership, we always like to really keep that in mind, whenever we, had the proposal for plans and projects and all these things. So he always issued a royal decree that, happiness must be, will this project bring happiness? Will our 5-year plans bring happiness and well-being to the people? So that we have already made to study all our government bureaucrats. So that way it was not really difficult to implement. And then something very significant is the early got is the environment conservation. So His Majesty, the fourth king, I think from the very early age, he felt that conservation is really important and the culture. So at the moment, we are very proud that we have our pristine environment. Our environment is so fresh, and this is something. If it was like we were concentrating on the GDP, then probably we could have cut down all the trees and sold out, and we became one of the richest countries in the world, because we have huge forests. We can do huge logging and then export. But then we do not want to do this at a cost. We wanted to also see how we can pass down to the generations, or the next generation. We cannot be selfish, I think, in this approach. So that's why in Bhutan we don't have traffic jam, by the way.
Thank you so much for mentioning the environment, because that was one thing that struck me a lot in your talk. 60 to 70% forest cover in this day and age. That is a feat. But at the same time, agroforestry is a main industry of Bhutan. So I'm very curious, because natural resource management is often, in forest management in particular, is often seen as at odds with environmental conservation. So how are you able to reconcile these two objectives?
Environment and?
Conservation and forest management. The economic side with the environmental side.
We have declared sanctuaries and parks, forest parks. About 52% is in that forest cover. So parks. So we declare national parks where you cannot cut down any trees or kill any animals in that area. So besides that, we need the 60% to 60% the minimum forest cover of the area. So that's not difficult actually. Even the we'll have to I think they have their own technical terms to thinning of the forest, and then also replantation. We take also replantations. And we are planting now, we are going to plant in the next 5 years about 10 million trees in the damaged forests, in the damaged and the barren lands, because we do not really want to degrade our environment at the cost of economic development or something. We need economic development, but then not at the cost of all the social well-being and the forestry and environmental well-being of the country. So that way, I think we are very strong. And everybody knows, even to cut down a small tree in the forest, you are not allowed to do until you get a government permission. You have to get a forestry permit to cut down that one tree. So if you cut down and if somebody sees, and then that guy will report, so this guy, and then you'll be penalized. So that that system is there now.
Just having to apply for a permit just to cut down one tree, that really shows how much people care about the environment, right? Many cities and many countries are trying to adopt GNH for their own, and I suppose some of these do it better than others. So in your observation, what have been the critical success factors for adopting and localizing GNH?
This is something very difficult, I think, because to really know about other countries how they would actually do this, but in, for instance, in Bhutan, even if we develop our cities, we probably have our cities, I mean, the plants and again, very long time ago. So this is a little bit congested, our Thimphu capital, a little bit congested. But we are trying to diversify that congestion through different ways of diverting the traffic from a different route. We have enough space. So, but to implement, I think this, as you mentioned, we have to localize these GNH values very much. So not you cannot adopt the whole principle here. So it has to be with the local context and its values, the conditions in the local community, for instance. So it will largely depend upon the context of their local, yeah.
Okay, last question for the follow-up, but we will definitely get back to you, Mr. Latu, towards the end of the session, is, even the mention of happiness as, a key value of the country, that is very historically rooted. And your pillars include, value for culture and tradition. But at the same time, Bhutan has adopted many innovations in hydropower in particular. So how do you balance this tension between culture and tradition, but also embracing innovation? How do you decide on what innovations to pursue? If you could share a little bit more about your process.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We encourage innovations. We encourage any kind of hydropower projects or anything, but those innovations projects have to align with the GNH values. So they have to have the elements of GNH pillars, GNH 9 domains values. So if they fail in that, then probably, as I mentioned about the community clearance. So the community will not, allow you to establish that. Then we will have to study the religious sacred places, for instance, if it is going to disturb the locals' religious, beliefs. So then there, if it is feasible, if the community allows us, then probably we would, conduct some rituals to appease the deities, the local deities. But then more so, we also do a lot of environment impact assessments. Whether this project is also going to affect this ecology of the locality. And the locals, we also know that whether this project will bring us pollution. If they think this is going to bring pollution, they will fight. They will even go to the court, even if government forces them, we want to establish this project. No, they'll take to court. We don't want this project because this is going to affect our well-being and this is not going to bring benefit. But of course, in terms of employment and opportunities, all the things, there will be there. But then, not necessarily that, they really look into this kind of opportunities. So they really look into the long-term sustainable projects, and innovations have to come with the values of GNH, principles and all those things. Then probably we'll get through. But we are not saying we don't want innovations or anything to develop and all that. But we are very careful in our approach to development.
Thank you very much for that. And as a social scientist, I really appreciate your emphasis on local knowledge and local beliefs. I think we can learn a lot from that example. And speaking of local knowledge and local beliefs, I'd like to turn to the rest of the panel, starting with Rian and then Paolo and Carmen. Personally, what is your definition of well-being? And since we're at the design conference, what does design have to do with well-being?
I think well-being has a lot to do with wholeness. Your sense of being complete and whole as a person, as part of a community, and as part of a broader country, a nation state. And to me, when you talk about gross national happiness, what it really means is a sense of common good. And defining a sense of common good at multiple levels operates at different scales. That's why the mention of having local consultation is a vital thing, because you don't want a national leader saying, "Hey, everybody be happy." Okay, we're happy now. So it has to come from it has to come from the localities and the local populations. to define what makes them happy. And I think it's vital. It's a great thing that that was emphasized during Mr. Latu's talk. The other bit that I also find important in understanding wholeness is how well you account for everything. And gross national happiness, part of what makes gross national happiness very challenging to implement is, unlike GDP, you just measure everything that gets out of the factories and that gets exported. Gross national happiness, you have to measure the soft stuff. You have to measure all the stuff that no one really accounts for. That's partly the reason why modern societies in the West are seeing a demographic decline and this social collapse, and also in values, because they've been focused so much on producing things, hard intellectual work. But no one's been paying attention to the spiritual, the emotional, and the social work that, unfortunately, we Filipinos as a diaspora country, we're the ones taking care of that for them. We're the nurses, we're the doctors, we're the caregivers that manage everything else that they've forgotten to account for. And I think if we really seriously look at gross national happiness, we need to take a holistic accounting for what it really is that matters.
Thank you so much for that. What about Paul?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Lato again for it's a very inspirational sharing that you have. I do have three strong points that inspired me. One is the one of the commitment. It's not just that they currently have 70% forest cover, but there's a commitment to 60%. And I heard from one of the audience members, the Philippines is below 7% of the spot, which is okay. That's one. So, but commitment is key. The other one that I found very striking is in the pillars of the GNH policy, time, right? The sacredness of time. And in a country so dependent on BPOs, that is tremendous. The BPOs is the business process outsourcing. It's a 24/7 industry, and it's contributing a lot to the economy, but it's also destroying the health and wellness of the people who serve it. So that was very, very striking. And the third one, which is very Buddhist and very deep, was happiness is knowing the difference between more and enough. I said, wow, that's very inspirational. Now, maybe to answer the question in a roundabout way, but not too long. This venue is very striking for me because in 2017, RHEA had organized together with the DTI the first Creative Cities Forum here in this venue. And at that time, we set the ambition, part of the Creative Economy Council collaborating with DTI, of having the Philippines on the list of the UNESCO Creative Cities. We had 0 in 2017, now we have 3. And it was all a matter of just intent and desire. And I think with this talk, and I'm very hopeful in fact, I mean, on a national level, when you take a look at it, it sounds very depressing, that can we achieve this? But I have faith in LGUs, that with certain
I think this
cities...
is something that Paulo emphasized earlier. And it is desire around which we design. So if we are desiring things that are unsustainable for us, that is going to come back to us tenfold later on. But in contrast, when we design around happiness, when we design around socio-economic well-being and the environment, as what Mr. Latu's talk said, that also comes back to us tenfold. So I suppose I will end with a reflection on desire. Desire in itself is not bad, it is neutral. It really depends on what we desire. And this is an urgent time for us to revisit our desires, understand which desires we need to let go of, and which new desires need to take place and need to inform our lives. Thank you very much, and please give our wonderful panel a round of applause.
Organization and residency that believes in holding space for island voices and narratives to foster greater awareness and solidarity around the issues that coastal communities face and the shared culture that they belong to. Our speaker will also be joined by her co-founder later on as she closes her session. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Nicola Sebastian and Ms. Samantha Zarandin.
How to listen to an island. Islands were born in the aftermath of a primordial argument, a scattering of rubble created by two parents that could never get along. But there's a third character in this story, the celestial bird Amihan, whose great wings could stir up clouds and waves. The beating heart of the sunset, home to the most species of marine life in the world. We host 2/3 of the world biodiversity, and half the species living on our islands are endemic, meaning they're found nowhere else on Earth. We're also abundant linguistically. We have more than 110 million people speaking more than 175 languages. One man attempted to catalog these islands through photography. Dean Worcester was an American zoologist who joined the early colonial expeditions to go bird watching. His photographs of the people he encountered were featured in the November 1913 issue of the National Geographic magazine. But what started off as curiosity morphed into an obsession with categorizing Filipinos according to degrees of civility. A tall man, he often stood next to his subjects like a measuring stick, creating a visual narrative that said that the Filipino was less because she was small. It was as if abundance was this problem that needed straightening out. Benevolent assimilation, the Americans called it. But if you want to make sense of the Philippine archipelago, instead of trying to control it, maybe we should try to think like it instead. The word archipelago, after all, takes its meaning not from the islands themselves, but from the waters in between them. So, I decided to follow the water. From the Verde Island Passage, known as the center of the center marine biodiversity, to Tubataha, an underwater mecca in the middle of the Sulu Sea, I came to understand that life and land in the Philippines is shaped by movement. So much life flourishes in our waters because geographically, the Philippines is itself a gateway. Here is where the Pacific Ocean, the West Philippine Sea, the South China Sea, and the Indian Ocean meet. Here is where no island is the same, each coming with its own unique origin story. This geological complexity, this mingling of tropical and subtropical oceans creates an ecological overlap, a crossroads of biodiversity. The first ones to think with the archipelago were post-colonial Caribbean writers, led by the Martinican poet Edward Glissant. He found, in the specificity of a single island, something insurmountable and powerful enough to counter the homogenizing forces of empire. Isolated yet connected, islands are where the cacophony of life at the surface and the magnitude of deep time meet. They reveal our evolutionary history, but they also show us the collective future of our species. For Glissant, the archipelago was a call to action. Following the water promises not answers, but a question, one that will keep unfolding, flowing, and swirling like the ocean itself. It invites us to attune ourselves to what is already there, not by keeping count, but by keeping time. It asks us, in other words, to listen. For me, it's been a journey that's turned my whole world upside down. Three, wait for a place to tell you its names. On the islands of Batanes in northern Philippines, the Ivatan named themselves the ones who drifted. Two great currents, the Bashi and Balintan channels, have shaped their islands for millions of years. And so, for the past thousands of years, the Ivatan have shaped their lives accordingly. Every summer, in the pause between the ending of one monsoon and the beginning of another, the Ivatan begin their fishing season by performing the Kabay Vanuvanua, a ritual making of a port. The port, or vanwa, isn't a built structure like a wooden pier. It's a crevice in the reef, a stretch of white sand, a limestone cove, a point from which the revered Matao fishers can launch their rowboats. In other words, a way out into the ocean and a way back home. It's a portal between land and sea, between the seen and unseen, between that which is inside of us and that which we call the world outside. Vanwa is a place, provisional yet sacred, around which the community itself gathers. But Vanwa is also the Matao themselves, working all summer long to bring home enough arayu to feed their families when the bad winds come. They become a society all their own. And so, by calling place and people by the same word, the Ivatan rendered the two inseparable from each other. Our colonial visitors, the Americans, the Spanish, the Japanese, they looked at our rainforests and they saw chaos. They listened to the cacophony of our languages and they heard incoherence. In other words, they made sense of the islands as outsiders. So what would it mean to sense the islands? Supported by the British Council, Wild Patch is a place-based inquiry led by the new media artist Derek Dumala, who was playing earlier, and curator Ligaya Salazar. It's an exploration of the power and symbolism of weeds, vis-a-vis the practice of foraging. We spent a month exploring landscapes with communities that still practice foraging as a way of life. They share their knowledge of the local flora as we visited a mangrove forest, a mountain, and a riverbed valley. We came to understand that despite the pressures of climate and capitalism, biodiversity manages to thrive, however tenuously, because it's tended by communities that depend upon it. In fact, we also learned that many communities didn't actually think of any plant as a weed. Depending on the context, each of them could prove useful, whether as food or medicine, or even maybe poison. In particular, we were drawn to a community called Apoplas, which is the name of the sandpaper-like leaf used for polishing wood. We designed a foraging workshop in collaboration with the elders of Opoplas, especially Barangay Captain Marcelino Perez Jr., to invite members of our La Union community, including surfers, entrepreneurs, artist activists, and students, to share in the living ecological wisdom of this community. Then Derek Tumala created a menu out of our foraging for a tasting dinner. The gathering served also as a space for the participants to reflect on the stories and sensations gleaned from that foraging workshop. And brainstorm on how
a person remembers. And I don't mean remember memorization, but a deeper memory. Something more primordial. Something that evokes a response. Design is supposed to do that. Design is supposed to make you feel things, supposed to make you feel your heart. In this panel, which is also a Filipino panel, I know it's an international conference, and I hope that the foreigners who are our guests here, after we talk to one another, you have a sense of the grief we hold in one hand and the hope in the other. I heard your voice cracking because I was listening to you deeply. My heart was listening to yours. And I heard your voice crack when you were saying the word kapwa as a web of care that catches our people in the absence of formal structures. The first panel was about happiness. And of course, Filipinos know how to be happy. But there is grief that causes us to say happy despite. This panel is about truth-telling, and that is why it is filled by storytellers. And that's why the panel's title is Once Upon a Place. A place is not some inert background. It's not just accidentally, randomly there. It is a place where the best of our resources are most activated. So we ask, what do we want the design community to be informed by? We want them to be informed by what it means to be Filipino. There's no single answer for that. There's an answer, like our islands, in isolation, very specific. But our speakers today have seen and known and heard and understood the Philippines because of their areas of expertise. He has seen Escolta in Manila, Robbie. He has seen so many environments, right? Wherever he built a house, the place told him how it should be engaged. Ma'am Philly is a food critic. She says, why am I in this conference? And I say, it's precisely because you know how we nourish ourselves and you understand our islands. And of course, we have here two young artists. When you showed your projects, I was thinking, what should inform design should be that whole interdisciplinarity of our politics, our environmental policy, our environmental degradation, but also our myths, our folklore, our words, our language, all of that together, woven, should inform design.
Amen.
Sadly though, our grief too. What I envy about Bhutan is when he said they were never colonized. And any designer who wants to do Philippine design must contend with healing from that grief, because we hold grief in one hand and hope in the other. Thank you very much, Nicola.
Thank you, Dr.
This is the intro to our panel. So, I'm going to start with, because she said in a question, how does one begin to tell the story of an island? And that is why I'm going to turn over to Ma'am Feliz Prudente at Santa Lucia.
Eto na po yung para sa inyo. Right, ma'am, happy morning. So, ano po ibig sabihin ng malikhaing Pinoy?
Yes po, Malikhaing Araw po. Malikhaing Pinoy program po, it was made under the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act.
Yes po, bale, these are the programs and initiatives po para ma-develop and para ma-person natin yung mga Filipino creatives ng mga initiatives din po nila. Bale, we have a lot po na meron tayong mga projects for them. You can check them out at philippinecreativeindustries.com po, which is launched noong September 3. And currently po, we're celebrating the Philippine Creative Industries Month this September. And ayun po, sana po maka-join sila sa #WeAreCreativeNation.
So if you visit our Facebook page po, from PTI Creative Industries Development Office, you will see the first pinned post calling all creatives. If you visit
we launched the campaign po, #WeAreCreativeNation. If you open for Facebook, the first pinned video is there po. All you have to do is to post any creative output and then put a short description lang po of their project para ma-share nila with other creatives, and then put the #WeAreCreativeNation po para they could get a big card.
Alright.
Happy Morning Show! Lagi kayong makinig.
Nandun tayo lahat sa Happy Morning Show.
Magandang umaga sa iyo, Miss Horizon, at sa iyong mga taga-subaybay.
Happy morning po, Secretary, and congratulations po dito sa naganap na pamanaagham sensya sa bawat habi at hibla. Sek, ano po yung suot niyo?
Ito ay gawa sa pinya at seda or silk. So itong horizontal, pinya fiber, at yung maninipis na vertical, that's silk.
Nataas na yung ating awareness sa ating Philippine textiles kasi marami na rin tayong kalaban sa merkado. Increasing the level of awareness, engagement, at para lahat-lahat tayo, di ba, we can recognize. Para pag sa susunod na may nakita tayong tela, alaman lang natin kung Ilocano yun or galing Mindanao. So,
pinakita rito kung gaano kahalaga yung ating Philippine textiles at papaano ito makatulong sa ekonomiya ng ating bansa.
Horizon. So ako po ay gumagawa ng research patungkol sa ating ekonomiya, patungkol sa kahirapan sa ating bansa, at patungkol sa turismo ng ating
Happy morning, Miss Horizon. Maraming salamat po. So, ako po si Manuel Hernandez. So, ang research ko po ay about sa mga garapata po. Pinag-aaralan po natin kung paano sila nabubuhay despite na kumakain sila ng mga toxic substance, katulad ng mga iron na nasa dugo, at kung paano sila nabubuhay kahit tinitreat sila natin ng mga chemical.
Mabuhay tayo ng marangal, magkaroon ng dignidad. Ang gaganda na sinabi niya. So ngayon,
Happy morning! Muli ang inyong lingkod, Miss Horizon Chaser.
sino pa pong kailangan na magbigay dapat ng tulong ngayon dito sa Angono Rizal?
Miss Horizon. Happy morning, Miss Horizon.
Director, yung, di ba po nakatutok tayo ngayon sa kalusugan, sa tamang pagkain. Sang-ayon po ba kayo rito? At ano po ang maipapayo niyo sa ating mga LGUs, government o mamamayang Pilipino? Last na sir, personal. Kayo rin po ba ay health conscious?
Sa mental health po, kasi marami po mga doctors, marami po mga professionals, pero may problema sa mental health, di ba po? And hindi rin sila naging productive. O may nakukulungan na doktor, ay may nakukulong na lawyer, di ba po? Dahil may mga behavior na hindi po kayang pigilan. So, ano po yung ating pag-aaral dyan?
Alright, so naging matagumpay ang annual scientific meeting. Sir, ano po yung talagang buod nito at tinutukoy natin para sa ating itong tema ninyo, Pilipino Wikang Mapagpalaya, and yung buwan ng Wikang Pambansa 2024, kanino po dapat talaga ito na maipatungkol at ano po ang masasabi natin doon sa gumagamit po ngayon ng wikang banyaga, lalo na po sa sensya at teknolohiya.
Sandali. Isang kilometro ang tanong at isang simetri ang sagot. Sandali lang.
Kung ano lang po. Sige.
Gutay-gutayin mo, Day.
Alright, para tuloy-tuloy lang. Sige po, edit na lang natin.
Okay, una, ano?
Ang cute niyo pala, sir.
Ay, cute talaga ako. Kasi tanong mo, isang taong 2 semestre ang sagot.
Para natapos na kasi. Alright, sir.
Joke lang.
Okay lang po. Masaya nga po eh.
Isa
Masaya
unahin.
po.
Okay.
Doon na walang iba.
Happy morning, Miss Horizon. Please visit the Cheongdam restaurant. Thank you for coming.
And happy morning! So,
First time ko to. Makikita natin talagang kayang may kinalaman ba ito? Dito? Alright. So, di ba, high-tech ng ating mga tricycle? Ako lang. Sabi nila, masama daw magkape. Pero bakit marami pa rin ang nagkakape ng healthy blend? Herbal coffee sa Health and Sight Wellness. Ito yung kanilang bagong opisina dito sa Triumph, Quezon City. Kaya tara, subukan natin ang Health and Sight Wellness 15-in-1 Herbal Coffee kung gaano ito kasarap.
Nagkakape ka na, nagba-vitamins ka pa.
tikman natin gaano ito kasarap. Libre lang dito sa Health and Sight kapag po dumalaw kayo, ano? Diba? Uy, tingnan niyo po, mga kababayan ko. Ang bango nga, sobrang bango. Diba? Kapag medyo stress ka, wala talaga yung stress mo. Ganito kabango yung kape. Yung mahilig sa brewed coffee, parang ganun din yun. Sarap po talaga kahit alam ko natikman ko na to, ulit-ulitin mo, hahanap-hanapin niyo po. Totoo, talaga ito yung kape na gustong-gusto ko. Kaya sana, matikman nyo rin po at tsak magugustuhan nyo ng kape at mahuhusay ang mga produkto na pala lamang na umuunlad po ang isang company. Ayan, so dito na tayo, napakagandang kumpanya ngayon ng Health and Sight Wellness. Kaya sa mga gusto pong pumunta rito ay alamin nyo lamang sa kanilang website.